In Pokemon Infinite Fusion, there's over 220,000 different Pokemon combinations. And in this video, we are here to see if I can beat the game on its hardest difficulty using only Fairy-type fusions. As usual, we're going to be playing this run as a hardcore Nuzlocke, which means if a Pokemon faints, is considered dead. The level cap is the next leader's ace, no active items can be used in battle, and we play the game on set mode. One thing to note before the challenge begins. I did play this run before the 6.1 update, so while these teams are significantly more difficult than Classic mode, they are not the completely updated teams if you were to play this right now. I will definitely redo this challenge in the future, but I already had the footage and I had fun doing the run, so I still wanted to make the video for you. If you haven't already, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And if you liked the video, leave a comment down below and maybe a thumbs up. The best way for me to be able to continue to grow is with all of your support, and I would really appreciate if you could help me out. But anywho, let's jump into it. Starting off in Professor Oak's Lab, I'm going to go ahead and choose Charmander as our starter Pokemon. And taking Mimikyu and fusing it with Charmander right away, we're going to get ourselves the absolutely adorable Charkyu. Before we're allowed to leave the lab, Rando challenges us to our first ever rival battle. He starts off by sending in Squirtsaur, and we're sending in Stuffy. After going for an Astonish and then a bunch of scratches, we're able to take this guy down, and we're moving on. Over on Route 1, we grab ourselves a Fletchling. On Route 22, we grab a Fanphy. On Route 2, we grab a Ladybug. And in the Viridian Forest, we grab a Shroomish. And now it's time to start fusing up our party. First is gonna be Fletchling with Sylveon, and this little bird is absolutely adorable, and I love his little bow tie. Up next is going to be Marilyn Donphan, and the result is this goofy little Fanrail. Over in the Secret Garden, we find ourselves a Zobuff, and then we grab our Rockruff Egg. And for our final encounter before Brock, we grab a Magby. And now it's time for us to face off against Brock and his Steel Pokemon. He starts things off with Arduck, and we're going to send in Stuffy. Going for an Ember on the first turn, we do about 50% and manage to get the burn off. Obviously, it hits us with our disguise, so we don't take any damage, and he doesn't bother full healing as we take him down on the following turn. When Steve Jr. comes in, we go for a double team to raise our evasion, but he still manages to break through as we follow up with an Ember. After getting knocked down to about half of the confusion, we take him down, activating his berry and getting the burn off, which is huge. Going for another Ember, we get him down into the red as he copies us using an Ember of his own, and with the burn, we take him down with just one more hit, finishing off Brock. While fighting our way over to Mount Moon, our Stuffy goes ahead and evolves into its second form. Still Charkyu. After grabbing our Magikarp, we run into Nurse Joy outside of Mount Moon tending to this wounded Geodude, when out of nowhere, upon the back of Steve Jr., Brock comes rushing in like a knight on a steed. He holds out his hand, Joy takes it, and they rush off together into the sun. In Mount Moon, we grab a Swinub, and then our Silling goes ahead and evolves into a Cylinder. And finally, our Fanrail is going to glow up a little bit as well, evolving into Fanrail. And he's showing off that little booty. What's up with that? We run into Team Rocket at the back of Mount Moon, attempting some sort of triple fusion. However, when their machine goes off, it explodes, resulting in the rocket starters turning into a Grimer? Is that how they're born? Weird. Over on Route 4, we run into a Yanma. And then over in the Cerulean City Pokemon Center, we go ahead and trade for a Bulbasaur. And then before facing off against Rando, we go ahead and fuse up Snubbull with Gyarados, and Garaball is adorable. Over on Nugget Bridge, we run into Rando, who's been practicing some magic tricks. When his card trick ultimately fails, we ask him if he would like to borrow a little bit of our real magic from our fairies, and completely enraged, the battle begins. Going for a rollout, we do some massive damage as a Mega Drain gets us down below half. And after one more rollout, we take out Mechanics. When Solovie comes in, another rollout takes him down to just one, leading into Phoebus. And we all know what happens to Fish. When his final Pokemon Niniyard comes out, it throws some rocks at us, and we're able to get it down way into the red, activating his Sash. And after healing up, we can go for a Bubble Beam, getting him down to about half, and another one to about a quarter. But one more Rock Tomb takes care of the Niniyard, and we defeat Rando. On Route 24, we grab a Drifloon. And after we help this furry get out of his suit, he gives us some boat tickets. And now it's time for us to take on Misty and her ice Pokemon. She starts off with Glaciary, and we send in Fanrail. Now, my strategy here is going to be to try to do the exact same thing that we did against Rando, but unfortunately, we get slapped in the face super hard. So we swap out, sending in Garaball. An Icy Wind does barely anything to us, but it does lower our speed, and going for a Fire Fang, we take him down to about a third. When Manras comes in, a Fire Fang obviously does a heck of a lot less, as now we get confused and punch ourselves well below half. A Bubble Beam comes in as we go for a Thunder Fang, doing some decent damage before Misty heals up. After a couple more Thunder Fangs, she switches into Glaciary, where we can take both of them down in just one more shot, defeating Misty. We grab ourselves a Murkrow over on Route 5, a Pikachu on 6, a Shelter in Vermilion City, a Voltorb on 11, and a Bagon in Diglett's Cave. Before heading on to the SSN, we're going to go ahead and fuse up our Bulbasaur with Clefairy, and the result is this absolutely adorable Clefsar. Leveling up one more time, we're going to go ahead and evolve yet again into Clefsar. Then, while we fight our way through the SSN, Liverlips is going to go ahead and glow up as well into Garabol. And I love the mustache. And finally, before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and give our little Sar a Moonstone to evolve it again into Clefsar. And I love that they use all this moon and space imagery in a lot of these Clefairy sprites. Great call out to that episode of the anime. Over on the SSN, we run into Randos performing a magic show. But when he goes to chop his assistant in half, oh my god, he actually did it! Luckily, it's a Gardevoir and there's a Pokemon Center nearby, everybody, don't worry! But he challenges us to a battle as a distraction as Liverlips comes in, getting Cacanuxio down to basically nothing on the first hit. After Rando heals up, another Fire Fang takes it down after we miss. Up next is going to be his Ninjard, and going for a Fire Fang, we get him down to his Sash, as a Feint attack does barely anything to us. And one more takes it down. Up next is going to be his Solavie, and going for a Bite, we get it down pretty low, as it heals back up with a Berry, and one more Bite takes it down. His final Pokemon is Slugbass, and guess what? This fish doesn't stand a chance, and we defeat Rando. And help him heal that Gardevoir. Before facing off against Lieutenant Surge, Dumbo's going to go ahead and evolve into its final form, Donril. I'm a little disappointed about the color scheme, but it's still really neat. And that means it's time for us to take on Lieutenant Surge and his fighting Pokemon. He starts off with Nosekeep, and I'm sending in Dumbo. We go for an Aqua Tail, knocking this thing down to its sturdy, before it decides to go for a Seismic Toss, doing what Seismic Toss does. On the following turn, Surge heals up, and we go for another Aqua Tail, grabbing the KO. Coughloom comes out as this next Pokemon. Going for an Aqua Tail, we take it down to about a third, as a Bullet Seed comes in, doing some pretty massive damage to us. On the following turn, we go for a Play Rough, scoring the KO on Coughloom. When his final Pokemon, Houndlade, comes in, we swap out and send in Bowtie. After taking a bite, no problem, we manage to get the burn off, which is awesome as another bite comes in, doing even less. And with just one Smoochie Kiss, we grab the KO, defeating Lieutenant Surge. Over on Route 9, we find ourselves a Sandile. On Route 10, we grab Stantler. We grab ourselves a Clink inside of the power plant. Ooh, we find ourselves a Larvitar inside a rock tunnel. We also grab our Honedge. And then we grab our Noibat Egg. Alrighty, before we face off against Rando over in Lavender Town, we go ahead and fuse up Mawile with Magmar. And Magwile is a silly little fire trap. Over in Pokemon Town, we find Rando, who's mourning the loss of his beloved Gardevoir. I'm so sorry that we couldn't get your assistant to the Pokemon Center in time, Rando! He starts off by sending in Zixio, and we send in Magwile. A Thunder Wave paralyzes us and skips our first couple of turns, but once we go for a Flame Burst, we get him down pretty low. And after healing up, we take it down. Next up comes Axigon. And after taking a Headbutt, we unfortunately get flinched, and a Rock Tomb is going to knock us down below half, and we're paralyzed again. So we're going to swap out and send in Dumbo instead, who can tank a Rock Tomb no problem. It goes for another Rock Tomb, lowering our speed even more. When we go for a Play Rough, we can fortunately get the KO. Litzel comes out as this next Pokemon, and after going for a Pursuit, we can get the Yoko with an Aqua Tail. Off next comes Ninjard. It goes for a Metal Claw, doing some decent damage, and we go for a Rock Tomb, knocking it down to about a third. And after going for a Bug Bite and activating our Berry before he can steal it, we get the KO with another Rock Tomb. Dual V comes in next, and it goes for a Shadow Ball, doing some decent damage, but we can grab the Yoko with an Aqua Tail. His final Pokemon Slugbass comes in, and it goes for a Will-O-Wisp, cutting our attack, but a Rock Tomb is still more than enough to grab the KO, defeating Rando. On Route 8, we grab a Sandshrew. And we grab a Why Not on Route 7. Over in Celadon City, we're going to grab our Eevee. Then on Route 16, we grab a Slugma. We run into Rando outside the sewers in Celadon City, where he makes a couple of rocket grunts disappear, if you know what I'm saying. Empowered by his newfound magic, Rando declares that he will defeat Team Rocket and become the Pokemon League champion, and he needs to go get more magic supplies, and runs off. And this is where we find Erica, the local gym leader. She says that Team Rocket has taken over the city, and she needs our help to drive them out of the sewers before it's too late. While fighting our way through the rocket base, our Bowtie is going to evolve, achieving its final glorious form in Silphlame. Next up is going to be Orbit, who gets to evolve as well, achieving their final form with Clefsar. And finally, Stuffy also evolves, achieving its Charizard form with CharQ. After splitting up with Erica, we find her at the back of the rocket base, where she's already been defeated by Giovanni, so I guess it's up to us to stop him, but you're supposed to be the gym leader, lady, not me. Maybe we need the cops. Haunting comes in first, and I send in Magwile. Knowing this thing is an absolute menace for the entirety of my team, I kinda can't switch out, and when I try to go for an Iron Head, I get OHKO'd by a Sludge Bomb. Next up is gonna be Dumbo, and for some reason it goes for a Pain Split, as an Aqua Tail does about a third. Haunting goes for another Pain Split as we go for another Aqua Tail, this time getting him down below half, as a Sludge Bomb is going to activate our own berry. Unfortunately for me, we're poisoned and I miss, so now we're getting down pretty low, as another Sludge Bomb KOs Dumbo as well. So, we're going to send in Orbit as our next Pokemon, which I probably should have done to begin with, as he heals a bit up with Pain Split and we start going for Minimizes. A Drill Peck does some decent damage, getting us down to about half, as now the Haunting is fully healed and manages to hit us with another Sludge Bomb. Now that we're maxed out on Evasion, I'm going to go for a Leech Seed so we can get some healing in, as we follow up with a Thunderbolt, getting him down to about half. He goes for another Pain Split, getting it down to the red, prompts Giovanni to heal up, and this time we go for a Smoochie Kiss so we can heal as well. This thing just starts spamming Pain Split again, and we just keep on smooching, going for those deep, deep smooches as he continues sharing his pain and kissing and splitting. And all of this is nonsense until eventually, somehow, some way, after just like a million turns. Come on, seriously, this is like the most annoying Giovanni fight I have ever had, ever. Can you please stop using Pain Split? Can you please stop using Pain Split? Okay, finally it's gone. Next up is Ketgon, and with our Evasion maxed out, I'm going to keep Orbit in, going for a Kiss, trying to heal up a little bit. We avoid a Sucker Punch by going for a Leech Seed, and why in the world does this thing keep on breaking through our defenses with all these Shadow Sneaks? But eventually, we take it down with a Thunderbolt. Next up is Smeargar, and it manages to hit us with a Hyper Beam, getting us down to just 4 HP, and I really don't know why I'm not evading any of this stuff. It's absolutely insane. Scared of getting hit, we're going to swap out and send in Stuffy as another Hyper Beam comes in, activating our Disguise. And then going for a Flamethrower, we can KO the Smeargar. His final Pokemon Disdain comes in, so we're going to swap Stuffy out and send in Liver Lips. After taking a Feint Attack, we go for an Aqua Tail, getting it down to its Sash. And after it gives us a big ol' smooch activating our berry, we can hit it with one more Aqua Tail, defeating it, and Giovanni. And now it's time for us to take on Erica and her bug Pokemon. She starts off by sending in Galvanape, and we're going to send in Stuffy. On the first turn, we go for a Flamethrower, grabbing ourselves the OHKO. When Roadster comes out as our next Pokemon, we can go for another Flamethrower, getting it way down into the red, and getting the burn, which is awesome. Erica heals up on the following turn as another Flamethrower gets it down low enough that the burn can take it out. When our ace Pokemon Volcanics comes in, it goes for a Bug Buzz, barely doing anything to us as we go for a Flamethrower, getting it down to about a quarter. On the following turn, she goes for a Quiver Dance, but it's not enough as one more Flamethrower takes her down. In Pokemon Tower, we're going to grab ourselves a Ghastly. At the top Pokemon Tower, we run into Mr. Fuji, who lets us know that Team Rocket has taken over the entirety of Silphco and Saffron City. And they move quick, because I just kicked them out of Celadon. We're going to go ahead and play this flute for this sleeping bear over on Route 12. Over on Route 12, I'll go ahead and fish up a Quillfish. Alright, we get a Girafarig on 13. We get a Bidoof over on 14. On Route 15, we grab an Ariados. Over on 18, we grab a Fearow. And in the Safari Zone, we grab a Persian. And now it's time for us to take on Koga and his Dart Pokemon. He starts off by sending in Weirion, and I'm going to send in Liver Lips. But we've done this mode enough to know that it is a dirty, dirty Zoric trick. And after taking a Psyshock, we do about 40%. On the following turn, it sets up a Reflect, so it's going to seriously cut our damage down, as another Psyshock is going to activate our Berry, and we go for an Aqua Tail, getting him down into the red. No, he's going to heal up. I stay in, going for a Crunch, hoping for the defense drop, and we get lucky, as now we're knocked down to just 8 HP, and we get the defense drop yet again. We then pivot, sending in Stuffy, as Koga uses his second Hyper Potion. Then going for a Flamethrower, we get him down just below half, and he sets up a Light Screen, the jerk. And going for a Feint Attack, we do barely anything, even though the Reflect isn't up anymore. But following up with a Flamethrower still isn't enough. And one more does take it down. Out next comes his Abtop, getting the Intimidate off on us, but we go for a Smoochie Kiss, getting him down to about a quarter, healing back up. And after taking a Pursuit, one more Smooch does his thing. Out next comes Haunchfire, and once again we're going to go for a Smooch, doing about a quarter as we get paralyzed with Thunder Wave. After being paralyzed on the following turn and taking another Drill Peck, we are stunned yet again! So we're going to swap out and send in Orbit. After taking a Thunder, we go for a Leech Seed. And after getting paralyzed, we're going to try to start spamming Minimizes to keep ourselves healthy. After we manage to get to +6, the Haunchfire is down super low, and even though it gets a Sucker Punch off on us, we managed to break through for the KO. When his final Pokemon, the real Weirion, comes in, it goes for a Haze, immediately getting rid of our bonuses, and goes for a Sludge Bomb, but we do manage to get the seed off. Another Sludge Bomb knocks us down below half, activating our Berry as we go for a Smooch, trying to keep ourselves healthy. Weirion then goes for a Protect because he is a cheeky little punk, but we are seeded, so we get him back down to where he was before. After trying to haze away nothing, we get him down pretty low, and now that he's in the red, he goes for another Sludge Bomb, but we manage to take him down with another Kiss, and we seal his fate with those lips. Because I forgot to do it earlier, we go ahead and grab a Dratini from the game corner. Then we grab a Squirtle Egg from our sister, and then Porygon from Bill's house. While working our way through Silph, first we go up Infuse Klefki with Porygon to get ourselves Clippy. Alright, awesome. And to fill up our final spot, we're going to go ahead and fuse up Jigglypuff with Ghastly for Gaspuff. And eventually we evolve it all the way into its final form, Gentuff, which we actually used in a stream a while ago. Welcome back to the team, buddy. Then grabbing the upgrade instead of Silph, our Portkey goes ahead and evolves as well into Portkey. Then we go ahead and grab our Lapras inside of Silph. We run into Rando over in Silph as he continues his mission to destroy Team Rocket and become the world's greatest magician. He just takes us for being part of Team Rocket and challenges us to another battle, sending in Whimsray, who immediately goes for a Substitute. After taking the Substitute out with a Flamethrower, we go for another one, taking it down. Out next comes Vaporeon, and going for a Feint Attack, we do a lot less than I honestly thought we would. And with our Disguise broken, I switch things up, going for a Flamethrower, but another Psychic does some pretty massive damage to us. So we're going to swap out and send in Liver Lips. Going for a Shadow Ball, Rando does a little bit of damage to us and follows up with a Hyper Voice, getting us down to about half, but a Crunch takes it down. Lampsil comes in next, going for a Shadow Ball of its own, getting us down to the red, activating our Berry, and a Crunch gets him down to basically nothing. But now that he's burnt, I'm afraid of some stuff, so we're going to swap out, setting in Portkey. And after we get this Flame Orb tossed at us, thank God we swapped out, he goes for a Fire Blast, doing some decent damage to us, but a Discharge takes it down. His next Pokemon is going to be Niniard, and we're going to swap out and send in Orbit as he goes for an X-Scissor, barely doing anything to us. On the next turn, he sets up a Swords Dance as we go ahead and use a Leech Seed on him. And then an Iron Head, and a +2 Iron Head absolutely destroys Orbit. We're going to send in Bowtie next, as an X-Scissor comes in, barely doing anything to us, and we can go for a Flamethrower, grabbing the KO. Up next comes Fraxalgon, and with a crit Draining Kiss, we're able to grab ourselves the Yoko. His final Pokemon, Magtick, comes in, and realizing I should have taught myself Fly, we go for a Draining Kiss, doing barely anything as a Surf comes in, doing a bit to us. We then swap out, sending in Poriki as Rando heals up his chip damage. Next up, we go for a Discharge, getting him down to about a third, as he goes for another Surf, getting us down to just 54 HP. Now that we're in the red after the burn, one more hit takes it down, and we defeat Rando. After explaining to Rando that we're actually here to stop Team Rocket and that we're not part of Team Rocket, we both storm into the president's office, challenging Giovanni to a double battle. He starts off with haunching an Agent Magius, and we're going to send in Whimsray and Stuffy. The Agent Magius goes for a Flamethrower, blocking my Flamethrower, and for once the Whimsray goes for a substitute and not a Tailwind and manages to stay up. After going for a Flamethrower, getting the Agent Magius down super low, Whimsray is going to full switch out, sending in Lampstill, who can then tank a Sludge Bomb like nobody's business. Afraid he's going to go for yet another King Shield. We double into the Haunch Sing, taking it down as Lampstill gets down super low, but ultimately goes down to its own burn. Ketgon comes in, and so does Fraxalgon. And as the Ketgon goes for a Rock Slide, fortunately we are able to block it and then take out the Agent Magius with a Flamethrower. Donzor comes in on Giovanni's side, and I know that we need to swap because this thing is definitely going to go for an Earthquake as I send in Liver Lips to get the Intimidate off on his side of the field. A Rock Slide then takes out Fraxalgon, and an X-Scissor does barely anything to Liver Lips. With Magtick in, Giovanni does what I thought he was going to do last time, and unfortunately I get flinched by the Rock Slide, so I can't do anything. I then swap Liver Lips out and send Stuffy back in, as a Rock Slide is going to get blocked by our Disguise, and a Shadow Ball does some good damage to Donzor, as another Earthquake comes in, and we get so lucky that Rock Slide missed. Another Rock Slide is going to come in, and we avoid it again and KO the Donzor. What luck. A Shadow Ball then does just a bit to Ketgon, and even though a Rock Slide does about 50% to us, we're then going to give it a big ol' Smoochy Kiss to heal up a little bit more. Then it goes for a Dragon Claw, taking down Vaporeon, but this is going to allow our Smooch to do quite a bit more damage as Giovanni heals up on the following turn. Getting a crit on our next Smoochy Kiss is going to get this thing way down into the red, and on the following turn, unfortunately, we get flinched. And this flinch is going to ultimately seal our fate as the Ketgon goes for an Earthquake, taking down our starter Pokemon. We then send in Hiei, who I probably should have used in the first place, and the Whimsray goes for a Giga Drain, taking down Ketgon, defeating Giovanni, and driving Team Rocket out of Silph.Co. Alright, grab Cyndaquil. In Saffron City, we go ahead and grab ourselves Rotom. Before facing up against Sabrina, we're going to go ahead and fuse Mr. Mime up with Aegislash, start filling out our team, and this Volo Agemime is creepy. But this little happy Executioner, I think, is even better. And now it's time for us to take on Sabrina and her fairy Pokemon. She starts off with Togetails, and I send in Liver Lips. My plan here is simple. We're going to set up and sweep. And after we go for our first Dragon Dance, we take a bit of damage from a Dazzling Gleam and unfortunately miss our Aqua Tail, which means we get hit down low enough to activate our Berry. She swaps into Silvar, who barely tanks our first hit as she heals up on the following turn, allowing us to go for another free Dragon Dance. And one more Aqua Tail takes it down. Up next is going to come Maricute, and fortunately for me, we don't miss and get the Yoko. Togetail comes back in, and this time we connect, KOing it instantly. Her final Pokemon, Clefix, comes in, and going for an Aqua Tail, we do about 60%, and the Rocky Helmet does quite a bit to us, followed up by a Seismic Toss. But I risk it for the biscuit, going for one more, knocking ourselves down to 19 HP, getting the KO, defeating Sabrina. And then we skip ahead, where we face off against Blaine and his Psychic Pokemon. Mr. Klang comes in as his first Pokemon, and we send in Liver Lips. Hoping to do the same thing here, we're going to go for a Dragon Dance on the first two turns, and Mr. Klang loves it so much that he wants us to Encore. But I'm going to throw it out there, Clangy boy. I'm pretty sure you're going to seal the fate of the entirety of your team, my dude. And after we bust out, we go for a Crunch, KOing it. His Ace Galchomp comes in, and even though the Rough Skin does some good damage to us, we grab the KO. Octotor gets knocked down to its Sash and goes for a Psychic, getting us down to just 21. But this was the only one of his Pokemon that could have done anything to us, and it goes down. Zykin comes in, going for a Protect on the first turn, but that one speed boost will not be enough. And we defeat Blaine, earning our Volcano badge. Alright, to fill out the last spot on our team, we're going to go ahead and fuse up Mamoswine with Togekiss to get ourselves Togeswine. We catch up with Team Rocket yet again, this time over at Mount Ember, where Giovanni has not only mastered the triple fusion technique, but he has managed to capture all 3 Kanto legendary birds, and after fusing them together into his ultimate weapon, Zap Molkuno. He's looking to take over the entirety of the world, but guess what, buddy boy? You got another thing coming. Zap Molkuno comes in, and I send in Winzip. Going for a discharge on the first turn, we do some massive damage to his side of the field as we get tripled into, and unfortunately Winzip goes down. I then send in Hiei, and going for a Thunderbolt, we can take down Moltres, as another Ice Beam comes in, absolutely annihilating us, and our second Pokemon goes down. Not wasting any time, I go ahead and send in Togeswine as an Inkpen Power does some decent damage to Zapdos and manages to get the Omni Boost, and with it we manage to survive, thank goodness. Going for another Ancient Power, we can take down Articuno, as all Zapdos can do is set up a light screen. Now going for another Ancient Power, we get the crit, the KO, defeating Giovanni. And with it, his bird defuses. They scatter to the wind. Team Rocket dissolves, and Giovanni runs home to his mommy. Fill out our last 2 slots in our team. First, we're going to go with Whimsicott and Salamence to get ourselves Salicott. But I would be remiss if I did not bring the Arbiter back, who loves his lemon grenades. Then for our final combination, we're going to go ahead and fuse Gardevoir with Tyranitar, or Tyranitar. And check out this absolutely amazing sprite. And now it's time for us to take on Giovanni for our 8th and final badge. He starts off by sending in Disdain, and I'm going to send Livallips in. I then immediately swap out and send in Twilight, as an Aqua Tail does a lot more damage than I thought it would. Then going for a King Shield, we can lower his attack on the following turn. Now that his attack is basically nothing, we're going to start setting up, so that way hopefully we can sweep. And after getting knocked down to 33 HP, I don't even do that. But when Snorking comes in, now we're down to just 5. So we swap out and send in Togeswine, assuming a Thunderbolt. From here, we go for an Ice Beam, doing some decent damage as we get knocked down just below half. And after we get knocked down low enough to activate our Berry, we go for a couple of Earthquakes and an Ice Beam, getting him down pretty low. But now that we're only at 37 HP, Giovanni heals up again, and we need to swap out. So we do, sending in Bowtie as he goes for a Thrash, absolutely hitting us so hard. Then going for a Smoochie I'm pretty sure we did just as much damage to ourselves as we did to him, so it's time to start healing up through his Thrashes. And after he manages to connect with a Thunderbolt, we're down pretty low, and I'm just going to kind of look for my opportunity here as we continue to spam Roost to try to avoid dying. And we're down to just 2 HP before we manage to take this absolute monster down. When Kafka King comes in, I swap out into the Arbiter, who barely tanks to retaliate. This fight is a lot more difficult than I thought it would, as the Arbiter immediately goes down. So we send in Liverlips, getting the Intimidate off. Another Retaliate does barely anything, so we're going to start stacking up Dragon Dances, because this is literally my only hope, as now this thing is down low enough that it's not doing any damage to us. And after getting to +6, we go for a Crunch, taking the big guy down. Tyrannosaurus comes in next, and going for an Aqua Tail, we can quickly grab the KO. Mapam comes in next, and going for another Aqua Tail. Thank goodness we don't miss here. His final Pokemon, Disdain, comes back in, and I forget this thing copies your stat boost, not just who you are, as we get taken down. So we send in Togeswine, and I assume that the run is done here, but he misses, and we barely defeat Giovanni. Going into the Elite Four, I am not super confident. This run started off so great, and it has just completely fallen apart. And even Lorelei is going to be a huge lift for what we have as our team right now. But let's take a sec and look at what we got. Starting things off, we have Twilight with King Shield, Swords Dance, Ironhead, and Sacred Sword. Bowtie with Flamethrower, Will-O-Wisp, Draining Kiss, and Roost. Pumba with Earthquake, Ancient Power, Air Slash, and Ice Beam. And finally, Maria with Draining Kiss, Psychic, Dark Pulse, and Calm Mind. In the absolute worst spot I've ever been in, we faced off against Lorelei and her water Pokemon first by sending in Twilight. The only thing I can hope to do here is set up and sweep, but Twilight is so slow, I don't really know what we're going to do here. But after getting the +6, luckily we're still at a pretty good spot health-wise, and for some reason I go for an Ironhead. Switching up, going for a Sacred Sword, we take the Polion down. Next up comes Scartops, and going for a Sacred Sword, we can KO it as well. Garrick comes in next, and going for an Ironhead, we get rid of its disguise, and on the following turn, the KO. Next up comes Pukatoon, and I honestly just kind of need to go for it here. I don't have another option. And after I go for a Sacred Sword by accident, we go for a Night Slash, grabbing the KO and getting knocked down to 65. Milotina comes in, and we're risking it, baby. It only sets up a Magic Coat as a Night Slash doesn't even do half at +6. And after Lorelei heals up, a Sacred Sword gets him down just below half. And for some reason, it's not hitting me, so it goes down. Kingstar comes in as our final Pokemon, and we are so lucky nobody went down. But are we going to have as much luck against Bruno and his Rocky Rock boys? Let's find out. A Rock Slide does some decent damage to us as I just go for an Ironhead on the first turn, getting him down below half, so that way Bruno will use both of their potions. Now taking this opportunity to get to +2, a Crunch does basically nothing to us and gets the defense drop though, which is not great. And the Tyrannoflame U-turns out, sending in Kingron, who's the absolute bane of my existence. Knowing it's going to keep on going for Metal Burst, I just need to kind of risk it, and fortunately it only goes for Metal Burst on the first turn. So, 2 Ironheads take it out. Next up is his ace Aerodon, who Earthquakes us, KOing us immediately. Sending in Pumbaa because I don't know what else to do here. We go for an Earthquake, getting him down super low, as an Eruption does barely anything, so one more Earthquake takes it out. Next up comes Armazor, and another Earthquake is going to grab the Oko, thank God. Kraidlef comes in next, and we go for an Ice Beam, doing about 40%, and it loves it so much that it wants an Encore. And it loves it so much that we freeze it in place. That is so lucky. As Marapirier comes in, we can just keep on spamming Ice Beams because of the Encore. But once it's done, one Earthquake takes it down. Our final Pokemon, Tyrannoflame, comes back in, and going for an Ice Beam, we do about 40% as we can take a Rock Slide. And we get another Freeze Off, which seals Bruno's fate. And we're moving on to Agatha with 3 Pokemon. Knowing that Clinkfish doesn't have any directly attacking moves, my plan here is to start off with Maria and then just stack up Calm Mind so we can hopefully tear through the entirety of her team. The Clinkfish just keeps on throwing a bunch of spikes down because that's literally all it can do besides use Destiny Bond. And after withdrawing Clinkfish, she swaps into Arnix, and we go for a Psychic, grabbing the Oko. Clefairy comes in next, and going for a Psychic, we get it down pretty low, as a Sludge Bomb comes in doing some decent damage to us, but one more gets the KO. Haunchling comes in, and a Smoochie Kiss is going to heal us up and take it down. And Crodregan goes down in just one shot as well, which is going to lead into uh-oh, but bye-bye. When Clinkfish comes back in, we get it down to its Sash, and after waiting out Destiny Bond, we can take it out on the following turn, defeating Agatha. And now it's time for us to take on Lance in his mythical flying Pokemon. Tokaflame comes in first, and we send Maria in again. Once again, my only hope here is to stack up and sweep, so after setting up a couple of Calm Minds, it U-turns out and sends in Septidactyl. Going for a Draining Kiss, we knock it down way into the red, as a Leaf Blade does some massive damage to us. And after Lance heals up 2 times, we can safely take it down, and Maria's back at full. Agent Menace comes in next, and going for a Dark Pulse, we get him down to about 40% and get the Flinch, which ensures the KO on the following turn. Togaflame then comes back in, and we go for a Dark Pulse, barely doing anything because it's Fairy, you silly goose. Why didn't you use Psychic? There we go. Later. Snorkel comes in, and after using Protect, its Toxic Heal is going to activate, making this thing an absolute menace, and it goes for an Earthquake, getting us down to about half. Then we go for a Smoochie Kiss, getting it down super low, as another Earthquake is going to come in, knocking us down a little bit more. And after withdrawing Snorkel, he sends in Volcageon, who we manage to take down into the red as we heal back up, and then take it out on the following turn. Snorkel comes back in, going for another Protect, and that is super annoying because all it's doing is delaying the inevitable as it goes down. His final Pokemon, Dark Knight, comes in, and one more Smoochie Kiss knocks it out, KOing Lance. As we enter the Champion's Chamber, we are greeted by the magnificent Rando, the greatest magician the world has ever seen. And with his newfound magical powers, he plans on performing the greatest trick ever conceived. And with all the resources of the Pokemon League at his disposal, he is going to reassemble and reanimate his beloved Gardevoir assistant. He lowers her body into a pool of green liquid, says an incantation, and raises his left hand. His eyes glow. The Gardevoir's lifeless body lifts from the pool, its tissue and organs reassembling, sewing together. She stands back before him, glorious, magnificent, but somehow changed. This is not the Gardevoir that Rando once knew. I literally have no idea where I am in this. Chandelvile's up next, and after setting up a Will-O-Wisp, an Earthquake is going to do basically nothing now. Then with a Fire Blast, we're knocked down to 76, and with that, we go down on the following turn. Knowing Twilight's not actually alive, I just accidentally revived it, we send in Maria, our final Pokemon. Going for a Dark Pulse, we can get it down into the red. As a Shadow Ball does some okay damage to us, we take it out on the following turn. Pax Menace comes in next, and we are in a bad spot. And a Draining Kiss does barely more than half, but we stay up on an Earthquake and take it down on the following turn, leading into his final Pokemon, Renuvion. Going for a Combine, we managed to stay up after a Hyper Voice in a second one and a third one, and down to just 22 HP. We go for a Draining Kiss, barely keeping ourselves up as we smooch this thing like we have never smooched anything before until eventually it goes down. And we defeat Rando in his reanimated Gardevoir in love with the power of Maria and our kisses. Maria and the zombie Gardevoir embrace lovingly, and the shadow shield of her Tyranitar gracefully takes her into the afterlife where Rando knows she truly belongs. It's time to move on, my friend. Rando cries deeply because he knows I won and he lost, and that's how I beat a hardcore Nuzlocke at Pokemon Infinite Fusion on its hardest difficulty, using only Fairy-type fusions. If you liked the video, like it, sub, leave a comment, do the thing. See you next time. And if you got this far, why haven't you done those things yet?